Hello and welcome to the Wednesday check-in here on Landy's Crypto Corner, powered by the Goxstein News Network. We're looking at Bitcoin today, of course, as always. Bitcoin did put in a lower high finally here, so we do have the potential for a trend shift possibly occurring on the daily. It's not set in stone, but Bitcoin's around a very key area as well. We do see that Bitcoin is also back into a little bit of a compression phase after kind of going down and sideways for little over, what are we at? This was the 23rd, so we're coming up on 5-6 days here. So since the move down, with the new open down here being the actual Thursday candle. So well, the traditional markets are what I'm watching in particular this week, as uh, uh, we've had a few different economic indicators and economic metrics come out. Durable goods orders came out. It was it was a miss, and when I say a miss, while it did come in negative, it was still positive over January and February, with March being the outlier. For the April data for durable goods, it was a miss in terms of the estimates to the downside, and actually beat estimates. So that was seen as positive in the near term. Consumer sentiment lifted by about 12.8 points to 98. So there is a lot of mixed signals kind of coming in. And that was something that we've been expecting based on the run up into tariffs for some of the other economic numbers that were kind of being bolstered by imports and inventories and buying and stuff like that. And then seeing that slow down when the tariffs actually took effect. So I just wanted to quickly touch on that. We had FOMC minutes, or we have FOMC minutes. That was today. Tomorrow we do have some economic stuff coming in, and that is going to be GDP. So for the Thursday candle, we're going to get some GDP quarter over quarter estimates, and I'm expecting it to, the revision of forecast to negative 0.3. It could go either way. We'll see how it shakes out quarter over quarter. Some of the preliminary data coming in would show that might be another miss in that it could potentially stay flat instead of going negative. But we won't know until those numbers get released tomorrow. And what does that mean for price action here? Well, the setup is pretty clear. We have this uptrending structure. We have our first lower high here on the daily. And this lower high does come with bearish divergence, by the way. So I'll take a look at that in just a moment. But for this lower high to break trend, that would be on closes below the last higher low swing here at 106,632. So any closes below there, that will be a lower high with a trend break. That is the trend reversal setup, as we would have a lower high and lower lows. And the expectation would be to be on the watch for potentially any, after a lower low is set, for that trend to get fully rolling with another lower high, or become a deviation and take out this last higher high at 110,830. So you can essentially look at price like this for trend on the daily. And and I'll talk about kind of what that means moving forward as well here really quickly. So we've got green line would be break back to the upside above that high, 110,830 or so. And to the downside, broken trend will occur on any closes below 106,632. Now, what does that mean? In reality, it just means like a little bit more of a correction. But we've seen what's been happening on this move up, and we have to be aware that it could continue again. We've seen kind of this sideways price action. We haven't seen a lower high really since, we haven't really gotten a lower high. This is the first lower high in quite a while. So, but we do need to be aware that when moving from, this expansion into kind of this walk up where price volatility was cooling down, there are some key areas to watch as it relates to volatility. And in this case, because we have the lower high and there is a potential setup here for the bears, and that setup is that we have the lower high and likely looking for lower lows. If that's the case, that's your bearish setup. And then continuation would be something like a lower high that then starts to break down into a deeper correction. So the alternative would be that we get something like this. We get a lower high. We see, price kind of stall up, maybe even swing lower for a lower low swing, but not close below, and then come back up and take out that lower high to essentially cause just a deviation of this bigger uptrend. So now this could be the cracks forming in this daily trend. It could just be a deviation. Got to give it time. We'll take a look at the support and resistance areas of interest real quick here in just a moment. But I want to note something as it relates to volatility first, and that is back above the highs at 112 and the upper second standard deviation. I would be looking for deeper targets, to start working up into the 112 to 115 area. I would then start, looking around 115 to 118 kind of medium term, and then 118 to about 122 is kind of a wider area. And we'll look at we'll reference the weekly in just a moment for some of that. But that would be the bull case, is turn this into a deviation lower high. Trend is not broken yet. It is just a lower high, which indicates on its face consolidation until it breaks down below that 106,632, in which case that's your trend reversal setup, and looking for potentially lower highs and lower lows from there to form a full trend. Otherwise, we're looking for, even if there is a trend break, we're looking for this last lower high to get broken above to go test the highs at 112. And start closing above that upper second standard deviation would kick off price volatility expansion up to the 112 to 115, somewhere around the upper third standard deviation. And then above there would be the expansive move to deeper territory. And essentially, you can take it one step at a time like I do, like 115 to 118, 118 to 122 or so, where the weekly is starting to fall in terms of volatility levels of interest. And then above there, there's that 1414 that I've talked about prior that we can reference in just a moment as well. That is around $128,000 to $130,000. But the big thing to be aware of is if this starts to correct hard towards this consolidation structure and loses the lower second and this wick low at 100,700, as I referenced on the Monday video, the weekly will likely put in an actual higher high, and that would be the trend break higher high on the weekly. And then we are in for likely a deeper correction. And, we could start to identify, 98 to the top side here at around 95. There's a point of control for this entire consolidation up here on the high side of this range, the prior range before the breakdown. And then that would be the next big crucial area to keep an eye on. And if it dropped it, well, then it's right back to the bottom side, essentially, where Bitcoin began to fail on the last move down. But that would be an expansive move into support. So, bears beware. Understand that expansion into support, isn't always going to favor you. It actually, the setup from here as it stands right at this moment is obviously expansion above the all-time high is blue skies. So there's not much to talk about in terms of resistance above. Now you can reference stuff like order books and heat maps and like all that kind of stuff if you like, but in reality, this is where decisions will be made over the course of the next week or two. Let's go ahead and what did I want to look at real quick? Let's reference that weekly real quick, then we'll turn on support and resistance. So above 112, I'm looking for volatility levels of interest. As I mentioned, 112 to 115, 115 to 118, 118 to about 122 is kind of the upper third on the weekly there. So I did want to reference that over here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the daily, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Let's go ahead and turn on local support and resistance. And you can see that this is a very, very crucial area up here. Essentially the prior all-time high at 109,360 to around 106 by the basis band here. Bulls want to defend this zone if they want to have a chance to just have a consolidation and then try to break back to the upside. Otherwise, if it's lost, 106 to 104 by the 1272 here is the next big area, and that is also the lower first standard deviation. And look right there to the bottom side, and you see right around that 101 by the lower second, we start seeing any breakdown below there. And then, of course, any closes, if it hasn't already swung down, any closes below 100,700. I'm looking for a deeper correction to this. Could find support over here, but, essentially 98 to the top side of this consolidation, bracketing the point of control here around $96,000. So 98 to 95, drop that. That's right back to the last weekly higher low on a closing basis at 93.5, which is where this, after regaining the range lows of the prior range over here that Bitcoin kind of took off from to make the new all-time high. So that would be an area to watch very closely. 93.5, anywhere below there, it's right back to the bottom side of the range, essentially 92 to 88.7. Some might take the wick low there at 89. And that would be kind of the line in the sand before going down and correcting right back to this lower low structure. Now, what does that mean for the longer term timeframes? We'll get into that after we check a few things here. So we see a confirmed drive of bearish divergence. This is the first drive on this trend up. So yes, there is historical bearish divergence over here, but what is most important is bearish divergence that we're seeing right now, where you see the in-trend bearish divergence form. And in this case, first drive corrective can usually lead to consolidations. If we start to see a breakdown and see subsequent drives of bearish divergence continue to populate, keep in mind that this high on RSI is this high at $98,000. So it can put in lower highs while still holding support and then building up that bearish divergence if it does begin to fail in this structure here. So just be aware of that to the downside. Not saying that that is a foregone conclusion, just something to watch. But bearish divergence, very highly likely going to continue to build even when we see higher highs, as noted by this little fancy chart over here. And this has the bull critical zone at $124,000 up here, which is essentially what it would need to hit to avoid bearish divergence on the 112 high. Could it just get a little bit above there around 120 to 122? Yep. And it would likely still get some bearish divergence. We'd have to keep a very close eye on it to the upside there. Momentum. We see 108, 176 is the momentum pivot, close above there. This will shift momentum back up in the context of the bullish control zone. So just something to keep a close eye on here. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the daily. I did want to touch on that weekly that I just mentioned a moment ago. Let's get rid of the support and resistance zones and talk about this, because the 107, well, technically the low here at 102,105 would set the high, and you're going to get an actual confirmation of that and continuation for a deeper correction on any closes, not just below the 102 as wick low here where it would confirm the high, but any closes below that 100,700, especially on a longer term time frame like the weekly, and losing that upper first would likely start to paint the picture that this is going to go in for a deeper correction towards that basis band, wherever that ends up at the time. Right now it's right around $94,000. If it takes its time, it's going to end up around 95, 96, which is the point of control of this range over here anyway. So, and I do need to revisit this because I still get questions. I know I talk about this a lot, but we had the downtrend here, right? and then we had a trend break. So whether this is the high or it goes higher, no matter what, we're going to see a correction at some point, and the most likely statistical outcome is that it's going to put in a higher low. This is just an example. And of course, this would be your trend reversal setup, higher high after a trend break. You look for higher lows or equal lows as it relates to the lows down here, preferably above the close open low there at 78,370 is perfectly fine. And then your trend reversal confirmation would be closes back above the 112 if that is the high. Now, could it go higher? Sure. Wherever it goes, that would be your trend reversal confirmation. You have your trend reversal set up on the next higher low or equal low if it's down here. And then your trend reversal confirmation is above the last higher high. So did want to touch on that real quick and tell everyone that I hope for those of you that are out in Vegas, you're having a lot of fun and enjoying yourselves. Stay safe. For those of you here at home just watching this kind of stuff, well, I wish you a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. And of course, that applies to my friends out there in Vegas as well. So have a good one. I'll be back here on Friday. Remember, on Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, I will have a live stream, and I will be looking at altcoins. So join me on that. Throw some of your favorite altcoins in the chat, and I will take a look at it and live chart it for you, and we can have a discussion about it a little bit there. And then, of course, I will have the Friday wrap up and give you my thoughts on what to look for going into the weekend. So take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. Landy out.